boys and girls, so today in math we are going to talk about shapes, and we've talked about shapes a lot during math in kindergarten, but we're going to talk about the difference between 3D and 2D shapes. So let's review our shapes. So we have our 2D shapes, which those are the ones that are flat, right? Those are the ones that we can draw on a piece of paper and we can see them. And you can draw 3D shapes on papers, but Miss Kish isn't really good at it, and sometimes they just don't look how they're supposed to. So we have our 2D shapes, and we call them 2D because they're nice and flat and we can draw them out and use them. So we have our circle, we have our square, our rectangle, our triangle, let's see, we have our, remember this one? We have our pentagon that has 6 sides as our hexagon. Then we have our pentagon that has 5 sides. Now, Miss Gish is not an artist, so we got to work on some of them, but we have our circle, our square, our rectangle, our triangle, our hexagon, our pentagon. Some of you may know an octagon, which is the shape of a stop sign. Let's see. So close. Miss Gish is not the greatest at drawing her octagons. So we have our octagon. So those are our 2D shapes, right? Those are our shapes that are nice and flat, and we can draw them. So we have our 2D shapes. Now we've learned about our 3D shapes, but Miss Gish brought some items along today that are the same as our 3D shapes. So we're going to start with our cube. We have our cube, and our cube is like a square, but it has multiple sides. And Miss Gish has a Rubik's Cube that is exactly like this, and it has multiple sides. If you've ever played with a Rubik's Cube, it's super fun, but it's in the exact same shape as a cube. So that shows our cube. And then we have our, let's see, and then we have our sphere. Now Miss Gish actually doesn't have a ball at her house, but I would describe it as a basketball, or maybe a volleyball, or maybe an orange. Now, if you know Miss Gish, she doesn't eat oranges, so she doesn't have any of that at her house, but it's like a sphere, and that's the one that's most known. It's a ball. And then we have our cylinder, and Miss Gish brought her water bottle because it's just like a cylinder that we've talked about. It has the edges and then it's round at the bottom. So that's our cylinder. And then we have our, let's do our pyramid. So we have our pyramid that looks kind of like a cone, but it comes to the tippity top and it points. Now Miss Gish has something cool that's called a kaleidoscope, and it's kind of in the shape of a pyramid. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I thought it'd be cool for you guys to see that. So that's our pyramid, and we can just talk about the Egyptian pyramids in Egypt that are the same shape as this. So that's our pyramid. And then we have our cone, and Miss Gish says that it kind of looks like an ice cream cone, and it's round on the edges, and if you look at the top of a banana and you just do the top of, or the bottom of a banana, kind of looks like a little bit like a cone too. So boys and girls, 3D shapes are seen everywhere, and that's kind of the difference of a 2D to a 3D. You can see 2Ds in different things, like maybe a window is a square, or a picture, maybe a rectangle, or a table, maybe the circle, but it's just the top. So a table may look like a sphere, not a circle, because it's 3D, right? Because you can pick it up. So those are some of the differences of 2D and 3D shapes. We also have one that you may have seen, but we haven't talked about it. So this is a rectangular prism. Now, boys and girls, we call it a rectangular prism because it looks like a rectangle on all sides, right? But then on the top, both sides, it looks like a square. And since we already had our cube, they named this a rectangular prism. And a really good thing that you might own at your house that looks like a rectangular prism is a book, right? Because it's got all those sides that look like a rectangle. So we have a rectangular prism. That's another 3D shape that we've learned. And now we have a cylinder. We have our cube. We have our cone. We have our, do you remember it? Our pyramid, and then we have our sphere. That's the round ball, right? So, boys and girls, those are our 3D shapes. And you know our 2D, which is our circle, our square, our rectangle, our octagon, our pentagon, our hexagon. So there's so many shapes in our world, boys and girls, so I just wanted to get on and just review them with you. So now you can go enjoy the fun games with all the different types of 3D shapes and maybe comparing them and seeing which ones you see. All right, boys and girls, go look out for your shapes today. See you later.